welcome to everybody that is here. Today we are talking about sleep. You know, I was just talking with Martine. It's a pretty broad kind of title of a webinar to discuss. While it is focused on leadership and resilience and performance, I think there's going to be takeaways for anybody who wants to get a better sleep, I guess. I'd just like to introduce Martine, who I've had the pleasure of working with for a number of years now. I don't have time to go through all of her qualifications, but she is a psychotherapist and a counsellor. And Martine's had extensive experience working in various corporate organisations in L&D, talent and coaching roles. Martine has helped me for a number of years with both work and personal issues and self-help and growth. So I can't speak highly enough of her. Sleep is just one of her specializations. Martine is really good with anxiety and career coaching and a whole bunch of other things. So I will pop in the chat. Anybody who wants to utilize Martine's services through Leapwell, I'll give you our contact details. You can reach out, let us know a little bit about what's going on for you, and we can connect you with Martine. So without further ado, over to you, Martine.
Oh, thank you so much, Sally. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Today, I'm going to talk about how sleep impacts performance, decision-making, and resilience. I'm going to share some of the statistics with you because no matter where you are in your career, it's going to be really important that you do start to prioritize sleep because its impacts are far-reaching. And if you're early on in your career, maybe your 20s, and not too worried about your sleep, well, you're going to get really worried about it when you turn 50 and 60, because all that lack of sleep over the years is going to have impacts for you in terms of your how you're going to age, basically. So it's for everybody's sleep. And often the first question everybody asks me is, how much sleep do we really need? Well, the science is pretty clear. It's 8 hours. It's not up for debate. It's not, can we negotiate with it? It's ideally 8 hours. In my experience, most corporate people get between 7 and 7.5. If you're getting anything less than that, you absolutely need to look at it, because if you are sleeping less than 6 hours a night, you're considered unsafe to drive, and you're unsafe to use heavy machinery. And the impacts of that is as bad as if you were taking drugs, or over the limit for alcohol. So quite an important part of our biology that we need to get familiar with. So we don't have much time, but I thought it's really important for you to understand what's happening when we sleep. Because, up to about 30 years ago, sleep was this thing that we didn't really understand so much. But it's become a whole area of medicine, and I'm lucky that I get to work in this space as a psychotherapist and counselor, because a lot of the lack of sleep comes from anxiety and unrecognized stresses. And that's, across the board for sleep. And it's good to do prevention rather than fix it later on. So that's why I'm encouraging you, no matter what part of your career you're in, to actually start looking at it. Because when we sleep, your brain sorts and processes all of the day's information. Sometimes you might remember a dream, which is helping you to get the information organized and filed away. Your muscle memory gets further embedded, so you can do a lot of things unconsciously. Hormones flood your body and do the work that they need to do. Your sympathetic nervous system relaxes. So there's talk that, sleep is a coma that you're in, but you're guaranteed to wake up from. And so your cortisol levels lower, which is really important for stress. Your muscles at times during the sleep cycle become paralyzed, which can be quite frightening if you wake up and you can't move. It also releases the antidiuretic hormone, which helps you not have to go to the toilet. And your immune system releases inflammation-fighting cytokines. So what I would say to you is, if you're not sleeping well, you are compromising your immune system. You are running completely on stress hormones, and your body doesn't have time to, consolidate things to memory at a high level. Now, what impacts does lack of sleep have? Like, as I said to you, anything less than 8 hours sleep, we know it impacts your motor tasks, so your motor skills, and that's the least of the impacts. And then it has an even greater impact on your cognitive tasks, your cognitive capacity. And so that, of course, is all your executive function. And then it has an even greater effect on your mood. So we know that there is a relationship between mood disorders and sleep, particularly depression and anxiety. And there is other research about other diseases too. And I'll show you the impact of lack of sleep on health generally. But essentially, when you think about the impacts of sleep and you think about your three brains, when you start to lose sleep and your body decides, because your body is going to decide this, not you, it decides where it's going to spend the energy that it's got as a result of the amount of sleep it's had, it is going to focus on all the things that keep you alive. So your breathing, your body processing as much as it can, all those kinds of things. It's not going to spend a lot of time and energy on your executive function, which is where all your cognitive tasks are, if it doesn't have any energy for it. And it's also not going to spend a lot of time managing your limbic brain, which is where all your emotions are stored. And therefore, it's not going to help you regulate, and you're actually going to lose your temper quite often the less sleep that you have. So if we don't get enough sleep, your stress levels are elevated, and that's both from a chemical perspective and then also behaviorally what happens. So you have a short temper, you get rigid in your thinking, you can't hold multiple ideas or bits of information together and join them up together, like join the dots. So that becomes really difficult. Your neurons start to malfunction. So some of you might notice that you don't speak as well as you'd like to, or you use the wrong words because those are just the words that are coming out. And so you need sleep for your synaptic connections to work, and also for your words to be good as well. Now, your brain, interestingly, can only do one thing at a time. It's either awake or it's asleep. It can't be doing both. So if you think that your bodily functions will continue in the way that it needs to while you're sleeping, that's incorrect. Your brain actually needs to be in the sleep mode to reboot, to flush out the toxins of the day as best it can, and to do all those things that I shared with you earlier. So if you're not doing that, then it's not doing that. And then there's a lot of plaque that will sit around your brain because it never gets detoxed. And we know from research that when you turn 65, you are at increased risk of dementia, but we're also seeing dementia at much earlier ages now, in their 50s. So sleep is also very much connected to that. And so if your neurons can't function properly, you're hampered in terms of the words that you use, the interpretations of how you feel, and how you behave, and it's not going to be good. And if you just need an idea of it, think about a child who has been underslept. So any of you with a baby or a toddler who hasn't had enough sleep, you know how they behave. Well, that's exactly what happens to adults, except they are maybe a little bit more graceful in terms of how they have their tantrums and all those other things. So here are the short and long-term impacts of sleeplessness. So from a mental perspective, your attention and concentration is hampered. And as a result, your results orientation So if you are in a role which rewards you on outputs, it's quite possible that the quality of the outputs won't be there, or the volume of the outputs won't be there. Your capacity to be creative, to develop insight and have pattern recognition, because remember, you can't hold all those different things in your executive function. You are struggling then with your problem solving. So that may show up in terms of not being able to see a potential solution, or otherwise going to a solution that you've used before because you have muscle memory around that, as opposed to doing something that might be a better outcome for that problem. Your learning and memory is hampered, and your decision making. So you don't seek different perspectives, you don't shape your ideas, you get quite rigid and you say, this is the way it's going to be. You also struggle to learn new things and pick up new skills. So if you're underslept and start a new job, good luck, because new jobs are very intense. You have a lot of new information, a lot of new people, a lot of new jargon to learn. And so that will be really hard and very tiring for you. And then also we need our mental capacity for our emotional reactions. So how we manage those emotions, how we process what's happening in the room. So your capacity to read the room will be really hampered, because you won't be able to allow that stimuli to come through to you to then be able to interpret what that means. And so you'll struggle to develop trusted relationships as well. And then your ability to support others will be hampered, because as a leader, you won't be able to recognize where people are at, like whether somebody is having a tough time or whether somebody needs more support or whatever might be happening. So, and if you're in a caring role, that will be really noticeable by how you provide your level of care, whether that is with, care and attention or quite rough. Now, I'll show you the next slide because it shows that green bit, which is your lack of sleep can be attributed to 67% of diseases that are preventable. So 19% of cancers are preventable through better sleep, 15% of cardiovascular, 12% of mental health, as I mentioned earlier, musculoskeletal, 12%, and injuries, 9%. So lack of sleep is the highest contributor to car accidents and fatalities. But injuries, you're more likely to hurt yourself, you're more likely to not see a step and roll your ankle and do those other kinds of things too. So it's actually really up to you in terms of how safe you want to be for yourself by actually making sure that you've slept properly. Because when you don't sleep properly, there are things that you start to do which look we'll leave this up here, but if you don't sleep well, you'll be looking for energy in all the wrong places. So you'll be looking for sugary food or high carbohydrate food because you're looking for the quick energy hit. Because guess what? The older we get, you get your energy from your emotions. And if being underslept means that you have muted emotions or more propensity to negative emotions, then you're not going to have a lot of energy that your body can actually create. So you're going to look outside for it. The other thing is that's going to happen is because you are running on so much cortisol, at the end of every day, you're going to feel like you're going to need something to take you down enough to go to sleep at night, or you'll need extra time before you're ready to go to bed. And often that's when people turn to alcohol or other behaviors that are not always so helpful. So let's talk about how you can get better sleep. Now, it's not rocket science. It's actually quite easy. However, it depends on how long you have been sleeping badly or not waking refreshed. That will determine how long it takes for you to get back to better sleep, to wake and feeling refreshed and ready for your day. So how you can get better sleep is to eat regularly and to have your last meal at least 2.5 hours before you go to bed. Now, for some people, that's not possible because of commuting and all those other things. So then I encourage clients to have a main meal at lunchtime so that you don't have such a full stomach when you go to sleep, because that's, one, uncomfortable, but also your body can't go to sleep and start its sleeping processes because it has to process what you've just eaten. And that has other implications too, because if you are eating food that is spicy or is potentially got gluten in, and while you may not have a sensitivity to gluten, you might find if you're eating a lot of bread across your day over a couple of days, you might find that your liver is working extra hard to process all this stuff. And so you wake up at 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning because your body is working so hard that it's heated you up, which means that you wake up, because when you're in your deepest sleep between 12 and 3, you really should be at your coldest too. So food is really important, what you choose to eat. The other is how much you hydrate across the day. So if you're not drinking at least 2 liters of water a day over regular periods, rather than at the end of the day drinking 2 liters of water, that's no good because your body will just want to get rid of it. So if you are drinking 2 liters of water across your day or more, then your body is hydrated and it won't wake you up. Because if you're not hydrated enough, you're probably going to wake up at about 2 o'clock each day, because that's the time when the body decides that it needs that liquid and you don't have it because it's been used up for other things. And so what I suggest to clients is, if you feel like you've had a really busy day, you've gone from meeting to meeting, and you haven't had a chance to really drink enough water across the day, I recommend you have a Hydrolyte as a drink with your dinner so that you can get replenished enough to sleep through. The other thing that you'll want to think about is, how are you breathing? Are you breathing through your nose or through your mouth? And that might be a good thing for you to just check in with yourself now and ask yourself, how are you breathing? Because the mouth was not designed for breathing. Your mouth is designed for eating, drinking, kissing. That's it. Your nose is specifically designed for breathing. And what that means is that when you breathe in through your nose, you actually get your air filtered. It gets warmed up, ready for the windpipe to receive it. And it also can filter out germs. Now, if you are struggling to breathe through your nose, I encourage you to go and see somebody about that, or you can ask me some questions about that, because sleeping and breathing through your mouth can develop into sleep apnea. It can also develop into other things that are not very pleasant. So that's really important. And if you are snoring, that is not a sign of healthy aging. Snoring is a problem and you need to have it looked at, because it's taking away from your capacity to have a proper sleep. Now, for those of you who smoke, I'd encourage you to try and give that up. But if you are smoking, then I would recommend that you don't smoke for at least 2 hours before you go to bed, and give yourself a little bit of time to wake up in the morning before you reach for your first cigarette. The other thing is that across your day, you need to manage your stress levels, like I mentioned before. So what you'll need to think about is, waking up in the morning, you're kind of at the best or least stressed. For that millisecond before you realize you've overslept, or you've got somewhere to be, or you've got a big day, or whatever that is, that's when you're least stressed. And you actually need to finish your day by the time you are about about half an hour from going to bed, you need to finish your day quite close to where that point is, so that it's easy for you when you lie down in bed for your body to go, okay, I can go to sleep now. Because it takes the average person 20 minutes to fall asleep, which is why I said that most people only get 7.5 hours sleep, because they allow for 8 hours. It takes them a little bit of time to get to sleep, and then they're off. Now, if you're struggling to fall asleep, the better thing to do is to think about, how do you give yourself some quiet time before you go to sleep? So that might look like reading a book that's not super exciting, that won't keep you up all night because you want to get to the end of it, but rather something that you can read a chapter of and then put away. Maybe listening to calming music could be another one. Some clients do mindful walking. Some clients fold their washing. Some clients do hand washing up. So those kinds of things that would indicate to slow down. A cool shower can also help, because when you're stressed, your body gets hot. So by having a lukewarm shower, you're actually helping your body to get cooler so that you can prepare for sleep. Now, the research is mixed around exercise. You can exercise in the morning, or you can exercise at night. It depends on you and what works for you. Half and half, really, is what the research tells us. So I'd encourage you to think about what works best for you. And then, just managing how you manage your energy across your day and across your week. So if you're having a full-on day, see if you can have a less of a full-on day the next day, so that you have a little bit of an opportunity for recovery. And see how you can manage the energy that you need to expend across your week and across your day. So one client of mine managed to get meetings, at least give himself 15 minutes in between each meeting, so that he had chance to kind of recollect what he had to do from that meeting and then mentally prepare himself for the next one. Sometimes it's not possible, but as best you can, it's a really good habit to get into, because also what you're doing is you're managing your stress in between each of these different things. Now, managing your emotions. If you're not good at managing your emotions generally, then this is a time for you to start to get good at it, because if you're not sleeping well, the ability to manage your emotions is even less. And so just breathe. Breathe through your nose, and this might sound strange, but breathe through your nose and put your tongue at the top of your mouth, along the roof of your mouth. That is actually really calming for the body. And when you breathe through your nose as well, you are getting more carbon dioxide and oxygen traveling around your body, which is also quite relaxing for your body. And if you want to, you can also breathe in and then breathe out for longer than you breathed in. So if you're breathing in for 3, you can breathe out for 5, and just do that for a minute or 2. You don't have to make massive changes necessarily to get a better night's sleep, but you do need to make some. And interesting fact, we are the only mammals that delay sleep. Every other animal goes to sleep when it needs to sleep and regulates itself, usually against the day-night cycle of nature. So hopefully that's given you enough hints and tips of where you can start looking at things in terms of how you can improve your sleep. I think I will just hand over to Sally again and see if there are any questions in the chat.
Hello, I'm back. Thanks, Martine.
You're welcome.
That was great. We probably don't have enough time for you to answer my question about how we get energy from emotions.
Yeah, so your positive emotions actually give you energy. Right. So that is why, from a mental health perspective, because usually when your mental health is poor, you're more sedentary, you're less likely to want to move and all those kinds of things. And that's why we say you need to start thinking about doing things that you enjoy, things that make you laugh, things that bring you pleasure and joy, because they are all uplifting energies, and those energies are the ones that move you forward and where you get your resourcing from.
Yeah.
And so resilience, if you are a happy person or a person that is quite positive, optimistic, you're more likely to have more resilience.
Yes, makes sense. Yeah. I like that. So just stop worrying about everything.
That's it, because there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
You know.
Another question we have, sorry, if anybody has any questions, you can pop them in the Q&A. Someone has asked about napping. Does napping affect sleep, and does it help with your overall 8 hours in a day?
Good question. And here's the response. Napping can be good, but the need to nap is a demonstration that you're not getting enough sleep overnight.
Yeah.
If you nap, you need to nap at least finish your nap at least 6 to 8 hours before you go to bed. Otherwise, it will impact your ability to go to sleep. And if you nap, you need to only nap for either 20 minutes or 45 minutes, depending on your sleep cycle. So everybody has their own natural sleep cycle, and it will depend on what yours is. But generally, about 20 minutes during the day is a good thing to do. But it's also a sign that you're underslept and you actually need to fix your nighttime sleeping, because your brain doesn't get to do the processing to the same extent as it would of sleeping. And so your brain is still going to finish incomplete if you are sleeping less overnight. And it's not like a washing machine where when you switch it back on again or go back to sleep, it'll start where it finished. No, it starts right at the beginning of the process that it needs to do when it goes to sleep.
Yeah, right. Yes.
So hopefully that's helpful.
That in. I hard relate to that. Less of a question, more of a comment on someone's husband snoring and sharing this webinar with them. So
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we snore for lots of different reasons. Sometimes it can be because there's too much weight, and actually that's why we're snoring. And so then that person needs to sleep on their back. But we also snore because as we put on weight, so does our tongue. And so when we lie down, the tongue might be obscuring where the air needs to go. And the snoring sound is the air moving past your tongue in your throat.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And so then if they are snoring, regularly snoring, then they need to have that looked at, because they're a big candidate for sleep apnea.
Yeah, right.
And so often people snore when they've been out and had a big night. And that would be because also a lot of alcohol in that's a muscle relaxant. So the tongue is probably not ideally situated while you're sleeping. But if it happens regularly, then they absolutely need to go and have that looked at.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Good.
If nobody else has any questions, I think we might leave that there. But as I said up front, if anybody would like to reach out via the Leapwell app, phone or email, get in touch and we can connect you with Martine for a really wide variety of issues you might be facing at the moment, whether that be with your career, personal life, or something such as sleep. So thank you very much for your time, Martine. Thank you to everybody that joined. We will be sending out a recording following the end of the webinar.
That's wonderful. Thanks, Sally. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.